Let me share my 2 cents on heavy duty training, which was by Mike Mentzer. If you are a historian of bodybuilding, or at least if you would have followed the 80s and the 90s of bodybuilding, you would predominantly know who is Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer was one of the best bodybuilders, had a huge Herculean physique, was a philosopher, a very interesting person. He, matter of fact, scored 300 points, which is a perfect score, I think, in one of the contests. And he was also a champion bodybuilder, and he is known for the HIT training method, which was popularized by him, which was called as heavy duty training, and even Dorian Yates, popularized the training later on. Now, there is one school of thought which believes in high rep range or high volume training, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and the pretty much most of the old school bodybuilders. Now, Mike Mentzer was the person who brought this high intensity training, which basically meant you train less frequently, do less number of sets and less number of reps in order to stimulate muscle. What he believed was you don't require such amount of high amount of sets and repetition in order to stimulate muscle. He felt that all you need is probably 1 to 2 uh, you know high intensity set, which would trigger and stimulate the maximum muscle growth, provided you get that intensity in the workout. So that was his belief, and what I understand, and based on my experience with HIT, is most of the times it's misunderstood. Now, if for a layman, if you look at it, if he thinks like, oh, all I have to do is just one set with maximum effort, and they go in and they do it, most of the times they don't respond well compared to that of high volume training. Why? Because most of the beginner to intermediate uh, or for that matter advanced trainers don't get the exact poundage and the intensity into training. Now somebody doing 135 uh, for say 10 reps or 12 reps, which would be his maybe would go to failure on a 12 reps, that's not an exact poundage what would require to build that intensity to trigger and stimulate muscle growth. Now, for a beginner, yes, it might work because if you're a beginner, anything is going to work. Basically, you will get results irrespective of the training method, because they are relatively new to stress, and they have far more better capability of responding to any kind of training. As long as they are stressing their body, they are able to do that. When it comes to intermediate and advanced, I believe it has to be an all-out set, and the form has to be precise. It's not like you're just moving the weight and stuff, but you're putting the exact amount of stress and also have mind and muscle connection. Dorian Yates and his uh, Blood and Guts movie is a very classic example. The form he uses is perfect, and or near perfection, right? And the poundage are pretty heavy. And another thing which is important to notice or to pay attention to is, of course, they do pyramid weights. They do pyramid the weights. It's not like if somebody's max is like 405, or somebody can go failure on a 405. They're not going to jump onto 405 or take gradual jumps. They are going to pyramid up the weight, start from probably 135, 225, 315, right? Then go on to 405 to failure, maybe 1 or 2 sets, right? They are not going to do like 12 reps or 10 reps or 15 reps on each set, and they are not going to do 4 sets or 5 sets, right? So that's how heavy duty training was designed. Certain things which I don't agree with heavy duty training are, like taking just one exercise per body part, or probably two exercise per body part, which I don't agree, because if you have to, from a strength per se, maybe yes, but from a bodybuilding standpoint, if you have to stimulate muscles for the show, and to chisel and develop all the muscle heads, then now it's not going to work out. You need a little bit of variation. So that's the only point where I disagree. And if you ask me whether heavy duty training works and can give you a lot of results, I would say yes. Now, especially it is very good for somebody who's not, who's natural. When I mean to say somebody who's not on supplements or not even steroids, right? I mean, so for a person like that, it's gonna suit very well. The reason being is when you train naturally, you need the recovery is pretty slow compared to somebody who's enhanced. So the rest part is rest and recovery and overtraining. I think he nails it on the head. However, I do disagree a little bit where the frequency of training, the resting period is far more, which I believe is not required. You can train pretty consistently, but yes, you can take a lot of a number of days to rest so that your CNS is back up and running and you're able to hit the poundage. So that's my 2 cents on heavy duty training. Do let me know whether you like the topic and what's your opinion on it. Please hit the subscribe button, share the video, and watch more videos of my channel.